Mark Harley on the Anabolic Doc Show. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you
Today,
for having me.
thank you so much, man. So, Mark Harley, you guys who know him, don't know him, he's an actor. This guy is a big influencer, and he's here today to talk about the truth on steroids, his own steroid use, and of course, some words of wisdom for a young guy. All right, so, Mark, tell us
Yeah.
first off about yourself and how you got into this acting and all this.
Yeah, well, I always wanted to be an actor and I actually got into acting in college. I was playing football for a small school and I kind of became that guy that was like the jock that tried out for the school play. I started taking acting classes and it really did feel kind of weird because I'm at this, not that I was at a big school, I was at a Division III, but it was like a private liberal arts school. The acting program was serious and started taking some acting classes. Definitely had a lot of side eye because I was about the same size I am now. At that point, I was on steroids already. So I'd taken my first cycle of test deca D-ball, and in walks this 250-pound guy with all these quote unquote theater geeks, for lack
Oh
of
my
a
God.
better term. So I stood out like a sore thumb. However, I knew that it was really something that was inside me and I really wanted to do. And my parents were very supportive of it because at that school, you didn't have to audition for the program. Like if you go to USC, you have to be like in the theater department. I could just take an acting class. So I took an acting class. Then I auditioned for a real play, like one of the two plays they do each semester, got the lead and kind of, gained my confidence as an actor from there. And then once I graduated, I was taking stand-up classes, I was taking improv classes, I was taking skit writing classes. So I have this kind of background of like being able to do it all. I took directing classes. So that's all. When you see me in my skits with Isaiah, for example, it is a big collaboration. We never go like written by, directed by, but like usually me or Isaiah will come with an idea. We block it out and we figure out the lines in real time from a loose concept. And all those skills come together at once. And we have great people on the other side filming and editing to put it all together for something quick. But when you see it's pretty cool because it's like the thing that I'm getting recognized most for is like, I'll come together, we'll shoot for an hour, something might get 20 million hits. Not every one of them, they do some pretty good numbers, but like some of them I go like, oh, I recognize you from that one. And I'm like, I'll look, I'm like, oh shit, that got 25 million views on YouTube Shorts. It's a kind of random and amazing, but it's nice because it's like, it takes the waiting game out of acting, and I've done TV shows, I've done movies, I've done commercials, but you need permission to do that. And so we live in a great world today where you can use your phone to go make crazy content. I've seen some of the best skits I've ever seen have just been, people using their phone, recording stuff, and it's a great world to live in. But as I said, at that time, I was simultaneously playing college football and getting into anabolics, and I'm on the bro science forums. It's like,
So hold on, what age? So what age were you again when you started steroids?
well, I was 18 on the verge of 19, so it was before my sophomore year of college. I played 1 year of college football, and I kind of felt like I was undersized. I was like 220 playing defensive line, and I felt like, no, this wasn't like, this is not my excuse. I'm not going, I was getting bullied, so I got up to 230 naturally, and like when I was in high school, I was the workout freak. I was the guy spending 2 hours. So I've always been a gym rat. And even when I was 17 and, 220, guys were accusing me of doing steroids just because I was always leaner and had vascularity and stuff like that. So, but I decided after doing all this research, and the quick journey is like, you pick up a Flex magazine in the 90s and you're like, oh, Ronnie Coleman's doing cell tech, I'll get that. I got every supplement in order thinking like, this is going to be the thing that's going to make me look like the guy in the magazine. And one by one, even to the point of I remember getting androstenedione and norandrostenedione.
Wow.
And those were very expensive. And my recollection was all I got was negative side effects. like I had terrible mood. I was blowing up at people. Like I remember my mom took me aside. It was like, Mark, your mood has changed and you're snapping at people and this and that. And I have to assume it was because of some of these things that I was taking that, may have negative side effects, but just didn't seem to work like, I wasn't looking like Mark McGuire, right? And so eventually I found online forums in the year 2000, 2001. It was called Steroid Encyclopedia. And I'll always remember had the British spelling of like encyclopedia.com.
Right. Those
There was a
UK guys.
What's that?
The UK guys.
You guys, yeah. So that always stuck out in my head. And it was like a forum where you could get information from, but then if you paid $20 a month, you could get this privileged list of like, and I remember the first guy I ever ordered from was called Doc Sustanon. And and I was either sending cash, like the first cycle that I got, I somehow landed on Deca, D-ball, and testosterone. Not super high doses, but also overkill for a 18 to 19-year-old on his first cycle. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And but I would either be sending cash in envelopes. I remember a USPS worker like looked at this envelope and was like, "What's in here?" Because I didn't even like wrap it in anything. I just go, "Oh, it's pictures." It was like,
oh my God,
$500 in $5 bills. So either that or like Western Union or MoneyGram, so I'm kind of this like old school like dark web, and I still use the dark web for different things, but like I was the guy figuring that out, and like my friends might want it, and so like they're giving me money to send over here, and one time it accidentally got sent to my parents' house because it was like I was staying at school for the summer, got forwarded there, so like it was already getting me in trouble in my early 20s, but I really was limited to like I did test Deca D-ball. In a month, I'd gained like 30 pounds. So like I was like 250, bloated, strong as shit. And then like a month later, I started getting these like back knee side effects. And so like in my mind, before I did the cycle, I'm like, man, I'm gonna look so fucking ripped. I'm gonna have my shirt off. Like I'm gonna look like the guy on the cover of the magazine, not realizing like what they go through to look, that 5% body fat and the years of doing it. So I just kind of look big and bloated, and then all of a sudden I have back knee, and it's like I can't even take my shirt off, So it was almost like this from a strength perspective. I went into the combine or like the yearly testing. We would test for 225. We'd run a mile and a half, and my at 250, my mile and a half was still like 9:30. It was pretty like I always had good cardio for a bigger guy because I would always run, but. I benched 225 like 33 times, and that one everyone was kind of like, "What the fuck?" Because that's kind of like an NFL number, right? Now, was I as fast as an NFL guy? No, but it was a conspicuous leap in strength from 15 reps the year before to 33 or 34 the next. So it worked, but at that time, blasting and cruising wasn't really a concept, and so like you come off, and all of a sudden it's like you're kind of getting smaller, and then you're getting injured, and this and that, and there's this idea of time on and time off. So I was kind of like doing like one cycle before season like 3 times, right? Another cycle I did was like equipoise and Withdrawal just on their own. And you kind of realize like without that test in there, it's not that strong, right? So like the results just weren't the same. The aesthetic was there. I was lean, but I was lighter. And then I remember reading about HIIT cycles where it's like you do a month-long cycle with like, I swear to God, it must have been like Tren, Nandrolone, and Withdrawal and test like all in like high amounts, because I look back at pictures of myself. This is before my senior year. I was like I look like just so bloated and big and obvious, and also like I was I remember getting in fights and stuff because of the Tren, and these are I would consider all these, by the way, mistakes. You know what I mean? It's like these are the mistakes that I make.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
How's your sex drive? Tell us the truth, because this is more for young guys, because you're a good-looking guy, you're an actor, you're having fun, so we almost don't want to color it too much. Like this was fucking great, and I did so. I mean, 2 things: sex and the hair. We got to go into the sex and the hair. Yeah,
the sex and the hair. So I never had any issues with sex drive while on PEDs, but specifically with when I told you about this recently where I did like an experiment, like somebody gave me a bottle of Tren, and I just like used it like 100 milligrams every day, for like 2 weeks or whatever, as like it was going to lead up to something where I needed to look buff, but I'm like, I'm just going to do this knowing that to me, I don't think you can do that much damage. I was extremely horny. Now, some people get this like the trend or the decadick or whatever, and it doesn't work. I've never experienced that, but I've experienced this hypersexuality that can come from extreme androgens, at least in a short period of time. And trend was one of them where I just found myself, I'm like, I want to jerk off for the 4th time today. And I don't think that's a great thing either, because it can hijack your mind, you know, in a sense, if you're taking large enough doses versus something like a TRT dose. I think it can restore a normal sex drive, but I think I've experienced like when you're taking these higher levels of higher androgens, it can become, you know, obsessive or compulsive.
But you know, guys, when they come off, even young guys, the problem with steroids is just too good to be true. You're on the steroids beyond the back knee and all this stuff. When you're young, no one's going to be thinking about the hypertension in the heart and all the red blood cells and all this kind of stuff, my ABCDs, which is, you know, you better start thinking about it sooner or later, guys, if it's going to be your lifestyle. This is what you get with the Anabolic Doc app. Number 1, a digital history and physical exam. Number 2, weekly Zoom meetings with me. Number 3, discounted commercial labs. Number 4, weekly member-only uncensored videos. Number 5, Anabolic Doc's mailbag. You can't come to the meetings or you don't want to come to the meetings, you ask a question. I'm going to respond to your question by making a video, put it back up on the app, and you get to see your own question. Lastly, diagnostic and management library that is easily searchable by keywords. But a lot of guys, they come off, Mark, they crash and burn with the cock.
Yeah. And that's something that I experienced too in between cycles. Because I was ordering all this stuff online. Now I have places like if I'm doing a post-cycle therapy, you know, I know the website to go to, and I always have stuff on hand, like the Clomid, the HCG, HMG I've used before too, Nolvadex, all these different things, or just maintain a low enough dose of testosterone, which is something that I recommend, because people come to me and they kind of go, yeah, I want to do 8 weeks of RAD 140 or some SARM, and I'm like, and what are you going to do after that? You know, like, so most kids these days have no concept of even what PCT is, or that it's necessary with something like SARMs. And in my opinion, and probably yours too, it's like you shouldn't be separating these two things, because if it's binding to the androgen receptor and has the potential to shut down your HPTA, then, you know, these are essentially the same things as far as a post-cycle therapy goes. So I always, even if I'm just running TRT, I still run HCG and Clomid for a few weeks, a few times a year, just to make sure that there's...
Even though you're on, so let's go into some of the, we're going to keep going here. So you did some steroids. You weren't really a big steroid guy, but you would come on and off. You did some PCT, and I'm not going to bust your balls and get into the data on PCT. Post-cycle therapy is like, you know, it's something ethical that you have to provide it for a man. And it is interesting what you just said. You have androgens classic, like Anavar, Dianabol, Deca, Test, right? Guys are still, it's always going to be loved. And then you have the SARMs, and the young guys think it's select, you know, the newbie guys, right? Maybe, and they learn the hard way.
It's a creatine.
Right, or like a pro hormone, but remember fucking pro hormones. So, like you said, it's gonna be devastating. So, SARMs are not as selective as we would like. So, why would you need PCT if they were really SARMs? They're not.
Right. So I try to convince people that it's like, this is to me, and I've taken some of them. I've taken the ones that it's like, oh, this is supposed to be comparable, you know, to trend, like. One of them is like S28 or something, but I remember being like, this feels like tren. I'm getting night sweats and I'm getting a lot of strength, and like, so some of these things I found to be more powerful, and I've experimented with a few of them, like Ligandrol,
Ligandrol, right.
These are extremely, I would just consider them extremely powerful oral steroids. Now, maybe something like Osterine is not as powerful, but it's like, maybe it's like an Anavar. I don't know, but there's, to me, it's been billed as to the new generation as like, oh no, it's a supplement, and it's like you couldn't.
It's a safe alternative when it's not.
Yeah, correct.
We both agree.
Yeah, and it's like the pro hormones of the 90s when you're getting androstenedione. It's like I said, I was getting the negative side effects. I was probably shutting my nuts down with the androstenedione or with the norandrostenedione, but just not realizing that I would need a PCT afterwards. And that is so important. I have experienced major depression and sexual dysfunction, not on steroids, but afterwards without doing a PCT.
So Mark, that's what I'm looking, because I'm not billing you through and dragging you through the interview. This is real, and like you're here to say this is what you have to say. But again, I almost was like, oh shit, is he gonna say like, looks like it's fucking awesome? Like, look at Mark Harley. I'm gonna have to cut the video down because I'm like, shit, this is not. I mean, Mark looks too good, and he never had problems. So, okay, so for the young guys, the problem is usually not beyond the psychiatric stuff, really the stress and the anxiety and the boils and the bitch tits and this and that. But bench pressing a lot of weight and strong as fuck, men like it, and then especially young guys. So but the problem is coming off. Tell us about the withdrawal of coming off.
Yeah, the withdrawal is very real because nobody, I mean, even when you're cutting on steroids, you're going to get weaker and you hate it, right? And so if you go cold turkey or even with a PCT and even with, I think things like nandrolone, in my experience, it's easier to keep some of that strength if you keep lifting. There are certain drugs like, Anadrol. It's like fucking strength pill. Like if you come off. It's going to turn off because there's a mechanism there that is in place that just immediately makes you stronger. So it's also immediately going to make you weaker when you stop taking it. However, the psychological effects of mainly so you're going to get smaller. If you were to train perfectly, like how like the Liver King's been saying, like I came off for 200 days or whatever. Now the thing is, people go like, oh, it doesn't look that much smaller. He was still training, like he's a multi-millionaire who all he does is train. So it's like there's not going to be that big of a difference in a couple hundred days when you've already accumulated that much muscle. It's not just going to instantly go away. But what happens is to so many people that I've seen, and myself included, is you stop taking steroids, you stop being motivated to go to the gym.
You stay home, right?
You stay home, and so there's all these elements of a cycle of depression where your sex drive is lowered.
Right.
When your androgens are lowered, you just feel depressed. You want to sleep more. You don't want to train. Like you don't feel like so. It's like this cascade of demotivating factors that lead you very quickly down this route. When you hear about guys like the steroids don't cause the suicide, the being off the steroids improperly cause the suicide.
And if you have and for guys, because as a physician, guys, people have depression, right, Mark? You don't have underlying depression. You don't have psychiatric features and mood disorder, bipolar, and you don't. If you do, to whatever degree that I have it or you may, it's kind of like something where a little bipolar. The wealthiest guys I take care of as patients, they use that mania to get shit. No one can work like a guy on mania.
Experience depression, but I wouldn't say that it's separate.
But steroids,
I recognize it as a side effect of coming off steroids improperly.
So it's really hard. Steroids, I know you and I talked about it. It's like a light switch. You're either on them or you're off. And if you do enough of them, the problem with them is it's awesome. But if you do it, you're going to end up on them. You're going to end up on them, and we don't want to give bad information to guys that are young, that are 15, 17, 19. So tell us about what your advice is. Tell us the advice about that for young guys. I'm going to close on that.
If I could go back, I would have never done it. I would have continued to research it maybe because I just genuinely found this stuff fascinating. It's like when you open up this world and you're let's say 1 in 10 or 1 in 5 guys. It's kind of like if you took like a group of guys who are predisposed to thinking about wanting steroids, it's almost like 1 in 10 is going to be a guy like me who's like just goes down the rabbit hole of like wanting to know everything. And then some guys are just like, I don't give a fuck about any of the science of it. Tell me what to take. I'll give you the money, give me the shit, put it in my body. And that's fine too. And that's like a lot of like the best one. Like I mentioned Ronnie Coleman before. It's like he's not the guy sitting there thinking about his cycle. He's just going to do exactly what his coach says, and that's fine. But there are other guys who are much more scientific about everything and you know, more oriented toward this chemistry. If I could go back, I would have waited till my mid-30s when it potentially could have maxed out my own genetic potential, because I had good genetic potential. I got up to 230 naturally, and I also loved to train. That's another thing that people mistake, is that this idea of like, I kind of don't like working out, so I'm going to take some rad 140 and motivate myself to train. And I'm like, that's the stupidest fucking thing, because I've loved being in the gym since I was 14 or 15 years old and always will. And also when I got off steroids after college and spent over a decade natural, I was doing kind of a Mike Menser DC style training, high intensity program, while doing cardio a few times a week. I was natural after using steroids and putting on muscle and losing body fat. And guess what? Women liked my physique more than when I was on steroids, because you can look so good naturally. If you actually maximize your potential, that's kind of a look. And I give credit to guys like Kino Body, Grego Gallagher. He's a big, he's natural, and I believe it. And he's kind of like, here's how you kind of get this look. Because let's be real, like, what do guys working out for? To get chicks. Like, here's how to develop your shoulders and stay lean. You only have a job and you only have to work out 3 times a week. Like, there's a way to hack this system where I was fed from these magazines this idea that, like, oh, if I want to do a chest workout, it has to be 30
monster,
because that's what Jay Cutler does. In reality, I found that, like, I had these amazing results with minimal but high intensity
Mike
sets.
Menser.
Right. So they're like, if you've never heard of HIIT, it sounds crazy if you're comparing it to the thing that you read in Muscular Development 20 years ago, but it works. And also you can kind of, it's like you can spend 3 hours a week in a gym and actually really get good results. And anytime I've stuck to a diet, because I've been on steroids and been fat and been like, I don't even have a six pack, I'm fat, I look gross. But then I've also been natural, sticking to a 2,300 calorie diet, a day for 6 months, and look shredded. And women go, wow, oh, look at that. Because don't confuse like a steroid look with a look that women want. Women like a little bit of muscle and
so
being
true.
lean, but you can kind of like, that maxes out at a certain point. So don't do steroids if you think girls are gonna like it, right? That's not the answer. And I just would have waited until my mid-30s and not jumped into doing these. I was jumping into doing D-ball, DECA, Tren, Withdrawal, Equipoise. I would have started, when I started again at 35, I did 150 milligrams a week of TRT. And looking back at the pictures of myself after like 1 month of hitting it every single day, I hadn't worked out in a while. Like, I worked out every day. I'm like, holy shit, I made a real transformation in 30 days. And then over the course of 6 months, I'm like, I kind of almost had like an ideal physique for myself just on TRT, and then maybe I'd add some Anavar, these different little things. So, but it was about, I was doing a keto diet. I was eating 2,700 calories a day religiously and intermittent fasting and doing cardio every single day. So there's so much that you can maximize naturally with your diet that is the hard work. The diet and the training is the hard work. The taking the steroids is the easy part. So if you're just relying on that, you're never going to look the way that you want.
What do you take? Let's close on this. What do you take now? What's your regimen right now, please?
Right now, I'm just on a TRT regimen. So, but this year, for example, I experimented with some higher doses. So I experimented this year with taking 100 milligrams of nandrolone phenylpropionate a day with nothing else, because there's a guy online, Tyan Clark is his name. He's an advocate of nandrolone only cycles, and I found it to be effective. Like, nandrolone isn't the fastest reacting thing, but like, I found that I didn't have any sexual dysfunction. I found that it felt good to train, and it was effective. And it's basically for hair loss. Like, if you take NPP, if you're taking nandrolone on its own, it's supposed to be safer for your hair than testosterone. So maybe like it's equal to taking testosterone with finasteride or something like that.
Right.
So I've experimented with nandrolone only. I've also experimented with D-ball only. And I've taken, recently I did a cycle of DHB, which is, you know, the dihydroboldenone. So the 5-alpha reduced, version of equipoise that I got my hands on. And so I'm constantly like experimenting with stuff like that, but ultimately I'll come back to, I try to make those experiments short or a month long and really push it, and then come back to, so I haven't lifted for 3 weeks actually, because I was in vacation in Costa Rica, but I always just try to get back on that horse. And even if I lose some gains or whatever, or you feel like, oh, I'm not as strong as I was, you know, a month ago, the biggest piece of advice is just show the fuck up to the gym.
Right.
And give yourself credit for doing one set. That's a workout. And you'll probably do more. But make the habit going to the gym and make the ritual surrounding going to the gym something enjoyable, because we get in this, like Greg Doucette pushes this idea of harder than last time. And I like that idea because it's such a great general concept to push to the masses of like, progressive overload can mean a bunch of different things: more volume, more intensity, less rest, more sets, like all these different things. And all you have to do is kind of turn up the knob on one of those things to progressively overload. However, you can't do that forever. And if you think that that is the only way that you're going to get a productive workout, then it might disincentivize you from going. Go in and have a shitty workout. You know, it's kind of like, I also write screenplays and scripts. One of the core concepts you'll hear writers talk about is like, write the shittiest page of your life, because you're going to start. Give yourself to go sit down and go write the worst script page of your life, and then once you write that page, you're like, oh, now I'm kind of opened up and I'm here. Oh, I'm on page 2, and page 2 is going to be a little bit better. So I would say to anybody, because that's a big thing during COVID, people would come up to me. I can't, it's one of these things I still can't wrap my mind around. Like Bradley Martin almost lost his like gym because he kept it open, and the LA was trying to shut it down, and they shut off the electricity and had to use generators. So he fought the good fight, but he was like one of the only people that I know of, at least in California. But like so many people during COVID were like, I'm not doing anything. Where should I start? They were so confused about kind of like where to start or how to get back on the horse. I have a lot of experience like becoming detrained, or you get off cycling, you're depressed, or life gets in the way, you're working 7 days a week and you haven't carved out that niche. So I'm a big fan of going like, I've developed these 10 to 20 minute home workout circuits, or like dumbbell circuits you can do. Like, so really all you need is 20 minutes. Right. And like, prison workouts like burpees. Do 50 burpees and tell me that you didn't get a good workout, right? And so my message to people who are struggling with getting started, because people will come to me and be like, I'm doing nothing, but I'm scared to go to the CrossFit class because I feel like everyone's in better. Oh, I go, whoa, you're doing nothing? Get up and take a 10-minute walk, and then give yourself a pat on the back because you did more than you did the previous 6 months. And guess what? That 10-minute walk is going to turn into a 20-minute walk, and maybe you're going to start running during that walk. So I'm all about going. Right. People go, Mark, I want to work out with you, but I'm scared that I couldn't hang with you. I go, hang with me? We'd be doing the same thing. We would be changing the weights. You'd be using the appropriate amount of weight. Like, I don't ever push anybody to be, to go harder than it is appropriate for them. So there's an appropriate level of fitness for you to be at where you are right now. And I just urge people to fall in love with that process, because I think that's what people do. Like I was, 18, 19, I was impatient. I wanted to look like fucking Jay Cutler, off of creatine and 6 months of training. And I didn't really have a mentor saying like, no. Like, and that's something that I've talked about with Michael Hearn. It's like one of these guys where you go like, say whatever you will about him. Like, look at him at 14 on stage as a bodybuilder. He has made incremental progress over the course of years by being ultra consistent. And those are the kinds of people who you see getting the best results. And that comes from finding something that you enjoy. And maybe you don't enjoy lifting. Maybe you just like cycling. But any type of exercise, you should enjoy something about it. It doesn't have to be the gym.
Mark, thank you so much, brother. We're going to have you on the show again. And thank you for being honest about the steroid use, brother.
Yes, of course. And I'm always on, anybody that messages me, I have a policy of being completely honest because I just don't see a point. And by the way, I've also used HGH. I forgot to mention that because we're talking about anabolics. I haven't used insulin. That's something I want to look into. It was very scary to me at first, and then I talked to Vigorous Steve about it, and he was kind of like, no, this is something that you can use. Like the dangers of dying of it are overblown, and you can use long-acting insulin. So it's like, I'm always gaining information, and I'm always trying to research more and find out more. And guys like you have helped me so much, kind of get to the actual science, get beyond the bro science and the rumors and the guys telling me, first cycle should be 500 milligrams of test and this and that. I want people who message me to learn from my mistakes and not make the same mistakes, and ultimately get better results and have fewer health consequences and maximize their potential naturally. Because that's the real advice to anybody.
How could guys follow you, Mark? What's some B-roll we could put up here for you?
They can go to Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and the handle is at Hello Mark Harley, HellaMarkHarley.
All right. Well, there it is, right there, guys.
What's
Mark,
that?
thank you so much, brother.
Of course, it was great talking to you.
Yeah, man. So it's just great, guys. Pay attention for more cool people like this. Thank you so much, guys.